Welcome to the Her Vibe is Pretty podcast, where you'll be guided on how to step up into your evolved woman,
design your dream life, and start living it. Let's get vibey.
Hey, Pretty Vibe Tribe. Welcome back to another episode of the Her Vibe is Pretty podcast. I am one of your hosts, Sarah, and today I am doing a solo episode all about the behind the scenes of my life. And I'm going to talk to you in a second about why I chose this topic and why I'm taking you behind the scenes of my everyday life. But before I do, I want to share with you, if you haven't already heard, I recently launched a new month-to-month membership called Inward and Upward. This is for you if you've been wanting to work with me, but you aren't ready to jump in fully with both feet, and you just kind of want to start to creep your way into growth and involvement and expansion. Or maybe you're new to the show and you don't know where to start with working on becoming your highest best self, your evolved self. You don't know where to start to move from the level you're at now in life to your next level. This membership is for you. It's a very low ticket investment to pay time-wise, money-wise, energy-wise for the value that you get in return. So this membership is full of practices that are 15 minutes or less that will help you embody your highest best self, that will help you shift your emotional state. So if you're doing life and all of a sudden you're hit with a wave of anxiety, you can hop into Inward and Upward, find the breathwork anxiety practice, do that and shift your emotional state. There are also practices such as journaling practices, there are embodiment practices, there are meditations, which I call high vibe affirmations and riffs that you can listen to while you are driving or drinking your coffee or taking a walk. There are breathwork sessions, obviously, that are 15 minutes or less. And there are also meditations that are 15 minutes or less. So this is an all-inclusive membership. You get all of the practices that are already in there, and then 5 new ones are uploaded every single month on the first of the month. In addition to that, you get a community of other like-minded humans. So everybody else who has joined, you will all be in a community together where you can share and chat and connect. And if you live in the same area, maybe even hang out with each other, you guys can communicate about that there. And then you also get one live meditative breathwork session on the first of every single month. So meditative breathwork sessions, if you haven't listened to my breathwork episodes already, they are the longer sessions that really create deep and sustainable change. Integrative sessions are amazing and such great tools to use throughout our everyday lives. Meditative sessions are the ones that it's recommended to do at least once a week. I personally do a couple a week, but you will get those meditative sessions on the first of every month. I will be live facilitating you through that live meditative session, and we will be theming those around monthly intentions. So monthly intentions are another one that Mary and I really, really value, another practice that we value. So on the first of every month, you can come into the container with me live, or you can watch the recording because you'll have access to that forever. And you can set your monthly intentions with me and the rest of the group, and then we will breathe into them to embody them. So you'll get all of this for just $33 a month if you use the link that is linked below. This is a special discount for those of you who are in the Pretty Vibe Tribe. And then you'll also get 2 weeks free if you are in the Pretty Vibe Tribe, which that link will give you access to. So 2 weeks free to try it out, to see if you like it. And if you do, then you can enroll at $33 a month and get all of the goodness to help you level up into the next version of you. So I hope to see you in there. If you have any questions about any of that, please let me know. DM me on Instagram at Sarah Jean Harkin, and we can chat there. All right. So why am I talking about the behind the scenes in my life? First and foremost, I love behind the scenes episodes. The podcast that I listen to, when I see a behind the scenes, I'm intrigued and I always listen. And I was reflecting on okay, why do I do that? And then that led me to this realization that led me to, oh my gosh, I need to create one of these for our listeners. The reason that I'm drawn to behind the scenes is because I feel like with social media, And with influencers and coaches, mentors, whatever it is, whoever you follow, whoever you look up to, whoever you desire to be like, or maybe there's somebody you follow on social media who you're like, oh, I want my life to be like theirs. I feel like there's, for the most part, and some people are really good at not doing this, but I think majority of those people, and it's really easy to get caught up in this, they share the beautiful things in their life. They share the gorgeous homes that they live in. They share the traveling. They share the amazing sessions that they facilitate of breath work, of yoga, workout classes, whatever it is. They share pictures of themselves when they look fire, which is awesome. And like, that's beautiful that they do that. And I'm going to say that we do that because I also can get caught up in that. I think that there's this huge theme of sharing the good things. And sometimes the struggles are shared, or not even struggles, and just like your everyday basic life. Sometimes that's shared, but not often. And once again, I get caught up in that sometimes as well, sharing the pretty things and not really sharing those everyday things that I flow through. And of course, it comes from a place of love, right? Like influencers and coaches want to inspire people and uplift them, which goes hand in hand with like sharing those things and showing followers what's available to them as well, or like other humans, what's available to them as well. But I think it's also really important that we are super transparent about like what life actually looks like, because so coming from my perspective and listening to behind the scenes episodes from my favorite podcasters, those people who podcast, of course, I follow them on Instagram as well. And it's really easy for me to watch their stories and be like, it's not really a comparison energy, which it definitely could be. And I will say that once upon a time for me, it was a comparison energy. But right now for me, it's more so of like, oh, her life looks like that. And I really want my life to look like that. And so I'm going to do what it takes. And I'm going to like follow her advice and do the things to make my life look like that. And so I do. And then my life doesn't always look like that. And so then I'm like in this place of like, well, what am I doing wrong? If my life isn't looking like this, and if it doesn't seem like hers is seeming, what am I doing wrong? And the answer is nothing. It's just that, because I'm thinking of a couple of specific people on the top of my mind. And I absolutely love them and adore them as mentors. I really do. And I value them and I'm grateful for them and what they post and their courses and all the things. But I know that that's not all there is to their lives. And I have to remind myself of that constantly. And so that's why I value behind the scenes episodes, because when I listen to a behind the scene episode, I realize like, oh my gosh, they are human too. Like they do struggle with the same things as me, and their lives do look similar to the life that, I'm living right now. So all is well. And so I was reflecting on this and I'm like, I definitely should create a behind the scenes episode for our listeners, because I don't know if you guys feel this way or not, but if you feel about me or Mary the way that I have felt about these mentors that I look up to, I want to kind of like clear that. And of course, one of my goals, and you guys heard this on the episode that we did at the beginning of the year, one of my goals for 2021 was to just be more transparent, more authentic. And in a way, I've been embodying that, but I feel that there's definitely more that I could share to embody that even more. So that is why I'm doing this episode today, because one more analogy before I dive in. We should never put anybody else on a pedestal. The moment we put somebody on the pedestal is the moment that comparison sets in, is the moment that I'm not good enough, or I have to work harder or do more or be more sets in. It's the moment that it feels like we're like chasing something. At the end of the day, our souls are one and the same. We are all connected. Our souls are all magical. They're all stardust. Like our human bodies are even stardust. We all have the same power and the same magic within us, is what I'm trying to say. And so we really are all on the same level as humans. It's just that some are a little bit more evolved in the journeys of unlearning the conditioning and reconnecting back to that soul dust magical part of themselves or ourselves. And so there's no need to put anybody on pedestals. We all get to be playing on the same field and learning and growing and evolving in our own ways for our own unique lives. So if you've ever put either of us, Mary or I, on a pedestal, hopefully this episode will help you take us off. Not saying that you don't need to, like, this is not to say to stop learning from us and to stop looking to us as mentors or guiders or for inspiration, because like, obviously that's super important. And like I said, like the mentors that I'm thinking of that inspired me to do this episode, I still look up to them, and I still enroll in their courses, and I still listen to their things, and I still watch their stories and take their advice because they're a little bit more evolved in the unlearning and relearning of the truth. They can help me, and they do help me unlearn and reconnect to my truth. So that's not what I'm saying, but what I am saying is you get to take us off a pedestal, and you get to stop comparing and thinking that our lives are something super different than yours, because they're really not. All right, so let's get into this. The behind the scenes explaining a day in the life of an intentional life, right? Because the life that I live is not just I don't wake up and live a stagnant, expected, conditioned life anymore. I really do strive to live an intentional life every day. So this is the behind the scenes of me living an intentional life, and an intentional life with the intentions of growth, of evolvement, of unlearning conditioning, relearning my truth, who I am, what I desire, what I want to create, while growing a business to help others do the same. So I'm going to take you guys through an average morning, day, and night of my life. And then I'm also going to share with you guys just a couple of other side notes of things that happen in my everyday life. Maybe not every single day, but they do happen in my life, and I do experience them in my life that probably do in yours as well. So let's start with morning. You all know I'm a huge, huge fan of morning routines. They are so important. So I would say that 95% of my days, maybe 96, start with some kind of work on myself, whether that's mindset work, embodiment work, some kind of something. And those are constantly shifting and changing. So once again, here's your permission to not have a super structured morning routine. If that's what you vibe with, and if you want to write out exactly what you want to do in your morning routine and do that same thing every single day, then that's beautiful. That works for you. For me, it's very intuitive. Some days I wake up early and I have a full hour, and I do all the things. I do a couple meditations. I do an integrative breathwork session. I do some movement of emotions through my body, some dancing. Some days I wake up and do reading on top of that. Some days I have like a full-blown morning routine. And some mornings, because I'm human, I push snooze. Do I intend to get up at an early hour every day because that's what my evolved self desires? Yes. And I'm human. And sometimes I push snooze. And I'm going to be completely transparent. The last month, I've been in a habit of pushing snooze. And I could change that. As of now, I've surrendered to it. And I'm really focusing on my sleep and allowing myself to just bask in my bed and my blankets in the morning and have gratitude for that. But sometimes I push snooze and don't wake up until like a half hour or an hour later than what I wanted to. And so on those mornings, my morning routine would once again be whatever feels good, but maybe it's not all the things. Maybe it's just, I usually do no matter what in my morning routines, I usually always start it out with some kind of meditation or breathwork session. On the days that I don't have a lot of time for morning routine, those are usually shorter. So those integrative practices that I was talking about at the beginning of this episode that are included in Inward and Upward. So sometimes I'll actually even do my own. Sometimes I'll pull up Inward and Upward and just do something short, and then read a couple pages of my book and call it good, and then move on to the next thing. So my mornings are, I think it's really important to start the morning out that way, because my next point to my behind the scenes life is sometimes I don't do that. Like I said, I would say 95 to 96% of my days include a morning practice. And then there are days like this past weekend, we were at our family cabin. And so from Saturday to Sunday, we were there. And I had intentions of waking up Sunday morning. We camped at our family cabin. And I had intentions of waking up in the camper, which is awesome for me because I'm in nature, and going out into the forest and meditating. And it didn't happen. And that's okay. And I forgave myself almost instantly. I woke up Sunday morning with actually back pain, which is kind of rare. And I went into the cabin where my family was at and had coffee with them and just like kind of had a morning, and I surrendered to it. I'm like, this is nice that I'm connecting with people. So I did that, and I walked out to the river and hung out there for a little bit with my boyfriend, my sister, and her friend. And that's okay. The morning routine doesn't happen every single day. And I felt it. Like, so I think my point of that, I can't remember what started that point, but I'm pretty sure that I wanted to share that with you guys, because that's why, in my opinion, the morning practice is so important, because when you start to do one and then you don't, you can feel the effects of that. And then you like, it makes you realize why you started doing it in the first place. Momentum is such a thing. So if you start your morning out in a high vibe, positive way, feeding your mind, feeding your body, feeding your soul, momentum's going to build, and you're going to have like this very nourishing, wholesome day. So on Sunday, I didn't do it, and I totally felt it. I felt off that morning, and I kept surrendering, and I forgave myself, which is a super important part of skipping a practice like this. And I wasn't hard on myself for it, but I felt it, and I observed what I was feeling, and I did do breath work later. So majority of the times in the morning, I do a morning practice that feeds my mind, body, and or soul. And on the days that I don't, I surrender, I forgive myself, and I try to do a practice at some point in the day to click back into alignment with my highest self. So another thing that I usually do in the morning is some kind of a movement. I like to get my body moving. And once again, that's different every day. Sometimes it's a walk. Sometimes it's a HIIT workout. Sometimes I get in my car and I drive to the gym and I do a HIIT workout, which is like a pretty intense, sweaty workout for 30 minutes. Sometimes I do yoga. And so once again, that's very intuitive. It's always changing. I don't have a set schedule for that. And there are days where movement does not happen. There are days where I still wake up, even though I'm like very much so an advocate of alignment before action, and I really do my best to embody it. And even though I'm an advocate of all is well and everything will be okay and put yourself first, there are still days where I'll wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I have a million things on my to-do list today. So I just want to get to work. I want to skip the movement, and I want to make my morning practice short so I could dive into work. That still happens, and that is beautiful, and that's okay. And I give myself permission to have those days. And I hope that you give yourself permission to do the same, because that's literally part of being a human. So that's my morning. And I eat breakfast at some point, and sometimes it's soon after I wake up. Sometimes it's an hour, 2 hours after I wake up. Once again, I'm very intuitive with when I eat, and it's usually something nourishing, because I like to feel good and energized and nourished right from the get-go. And of course, there are days like at the cabin where I'll set the intention of eating a nourishing breakfast, and then I'll have like a donut whole, and that's beautiful too. So yes, I am a food freedom coach. I am a healthy living advocate. I do my best to nourish my body and my family's bodies. And I do that probably 90 to 95% of the time. And I also eat donut holes here and there, because I am a human, as are you. Okay, so that's my morning. And throughout the day, well, it looks different. So I have like some really basic notes on what I wanted to say in this episode, very general outline. And one of them that I put is figuring out how to run my business, LOL. And that seriously defines like my days. I am an entrepreneur. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Maybe you aren't, but want to be one day. No matter where you're at, entrepreneurs are always trying to figure out like what the next step is, because entrepreneurship is like, it's not even, it is kind of a mystery, but it's also just very unique for everybody. We're so different. We're also, we're all the same. We're all connected at the core of who we are. And we're also different in the way that we work and what we want to create and how we want to help the world and how we want to change things and our missions and our visions. So entrepreneurs are pretty much always trying to figure out like, what's the next step to do in the business, and how do I run this thing, and how do I help the world by also creating a stable income for myself. So that's what the majority of my days look like. So some things include just like creating content, going live, all the social media things, creating new programs, interacting with members of current programs, working on my website, replying to emails, recording podcast episodes, teaching breathwork classes, planning future breathwork classes, creating marketing for current programs. So just some staples in my business specifically. That's kind of how I run it. And to be completely honest, I don't really have like a set structure. I don't have the same day-to-day life as far as business goes, because that's what I wanted. That's why I decided to become an entrepreneur in the first place. I wanted every day to look different, and I wanted to be able to decide what I do with my everyday life. So that's the majority of my day, and a staple for my days are sage and Palo Santo. These are, what are they? They're plants. I think if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this, but the sage is, I want to say it's like a sage bush. Somebody should slide in my DMs and let me know if I'm right about that. But it's definitely a plant that is grown, and then they dry it out and you can burn it and it cleanses the energy. And Palo Santo is like a wooden stick, and I'm pretty sure it's a tree. That's what its origins are. So those two things are a staple in my day, because I have associated sage and Palo Santo with energy cleanse and a shift in my business. So like, I'll use them when I'm shifting gears. I'll use them before I lead a session. I facilitate any kind of session, whether it's coaching, breathwork, yoga. I'll usually use them after and during. Those are staples in my day. I use them all the time to cleanse my energy, to cleanse the energy of the space, to cleanse the client's energies. So those are a staple. Another staple is nourishing food. Majority of the times I eat lunch. I'm typically somebody who eats 3-ish meals a day. I don't love snacking as of now. I used to. Once upon a time in my binge and emotional eating days, I ate like all day long. Right now, I would say that I usually eat lunch because I have to, because I do get hungry, and it's typically nourishing. And once again, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's peanut butter and jelly, but that works. So I eat lunch, and I'm not like, sometimes I'll show you guys glamorous meals that I cook up, and majority of the time my meals don't look glamorous. Majority of the time my meals look like a bunch of veggies, quinoa, and tahini thrown in a bowl, and I call it good. So those are the basics, and mindset and embodiment work is so, so key for me. So it's not like I sit in meditation like all day long, but I do take breaks as much as I can. And of course, once again, I am a human, and sometimes I go an entire day without taking one break. And once again, I feel the effects of that. And I would say that that's one practice in a life that's intentional and growth oriented that we all get to have, is just observing what we do throughout our days and how that impacts us and how that impacts the way we feel. On the days where, like I said, I don't do a morning routine, or on the days where I go all day without taking a break, I feel it in my bones. And I don't judge myself for it, but I just take note of it and observe it and use it as a reminder as to why I do a morning practice, as to why I take breaks. So grounding breaks are a staple for me. Going outside with my bare feet and walking around on the earth. Right now, where I live, I can do that. In the winter, if I'm still living here, I won't be able to. But as of now, that's something that I like to do a lot. Even if it's just 2 minutes, you guys, like sometimes I will literally just like force myself to put everything down. I'll walk outside. I'll do a circle with bare feet and I'll come back in. Breathwork breaks are another really important part of my day. Integrative breathwork, of course. So once again, all integrative practices I have for you in inward and upward. I usually use my own. Sometimes I'll use some of my peers, but a breathwork break. So taking like 12 to 15 minutes to intentionally breathe is a staple in my day. And then sometimes I take breaks to connect with my lover. So right now I'm just giving you guys like the basic what a day in my life looks like. And then in a second, I'm going to get more so into like the humanness of me and my life. So that's my day. And then at night, so it depends. When I wrap up work, it's usually anywhere between, it really depends on the day. It's usually between 5 and 6. Sometimes earlier if I'm taking a half day, or if I'm just not focused, sometimes later if I'm like really in the zone. But once I put all of my work down, I'm going to share with you guys, like, so this is one of the things, and then we'll transition into more of like the humanness of me. This is one of those things that is not really shown on social media. At least I don't show it a lot because it's kind of hard to show, to be honest, and to be fair. But I don't really see it a ton from my mentors, kind of, but not really. At nighttime, the battle is still in the mind in me. The thoughts still come up of, should I go watch Netflix and eat and find something sweet? Or should I do something that's more in alignment with my highest self, like breathwork or yoga or journaling or taking a walk or asking my partner if he wants to watch the sunset or going to watch the sunset by myself? The battle is still existent. It is still there. I think scientifically it takes 7 years to totally reprogram the mind. And of course, I've done a lot of work on myself and I've started to reprogram it through mindset work, embodiment work, all of the practices that I teach in Diet Culture Dropout, which is one of my main programs, breath work. But the thoughts still arise. The thoughts are still there. Like, oh, are you watching a Netflix show right now? Oh, do you want to watch Netflix? Do you want to watch a movie? Do you want to eat? Or do you want to do something that's going to fill your soul? So I'm just sharing this with you guys to tell you that like, it's not always super easy to embody the life that I desire to live. The limiting beliefs still come up. The limiting thought patterns still arise. The difference is how I go about them. The difference now, after doing all of the work I've done on myself, is those thoughts come up and I'm now able to drop into my body and ask my body and my soul what it wants and honor that. And I honor that 98% of the time. I will say that there is probably about 2% of the time where I don't. But once again, there is 2% of the time where I don't. And that 2% of the time where I do choose to watch Netflix instead of do a breathwork session, once again, I observe, I forgive, I accept. And that's the biggest difference, because once upon a time I was in this trap of like, I'm done with work for the day. I automatically would just go right in front of the TV, watch Netflix, eat snacks, go to bed, do it the next day. And I felt very depleted. I felt exhausted. I felt mundane in my life. I felt stagnant. And I felt very disconnected from my truth and my highest life. And so in that 2% now, and my point of that actually was that I would also have a lot of guilt and shame around doing those things. And I'd be hard on myself. Every time I did it, I'd be hard on myself the next day or during doing it. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why did I do that again? Why am I in this habit? Why am I in this pattern again? And so now the difference is that when I do choose to watch a Netflix show and eat dinner while I'm watching Netflix, instead of do something that's, making me evolve even more, I accept it and I forgive myself instantly. And I think that's what's helped me shift 98% of my life and my nights into doing something that's more in alignment with what I actually